Anyhow, while they're calling back in, this is Neil Miller. Again, I'm the business manager for the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local Union 198, and we're waiting on the caller, the special guest, to call back in. We started this show. Let me try to do it again. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
This is Rex Smith.
Well, hey, can you hear me? Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Can you hold on one second? I'm just going to make sure that I got you on. Okay. All right. Good morning. How you doing this morning?
Doing well.
And how have you been doing?
Pretty good.
What's been going on in your busy agenda?
It's been busy, that's for sure. Very much so.
Miss Pat, why don't you give a little bio of yourself and tell the listeners what you've been doing and what you're all about and who you are.
Well, it's Representative Patricia Smith, and I represent District 67, which encompasses the area between Tony's Seafood and all the way back past LSU. So it's a very diverse district. It takes in some affluent areas and also some very impoverished areas as well. But we have a good district, I'll put it that way, because it also encompasses the downtown and the capital area. And this is my second term in the legislature, and since I've been there, I've concentrated on areas like education, as well as penal reform, and spatterings on some labor and other things, healthcare as well. So that's me. Married, have 11 grandchildren and 6 children.
Wow. Busy. And for the listeners, and I'm not saying that because she's on the phone. I mean, she is all about the working men and women in Louisiana. And I'm going to tell you something, when other people, I don't know what it was, where I guess the word intimidation by our governor, she wasn't. I can promise you that. She stood right there in the forefront and fought a lot of issues that the governor tried to ram down everybody's throat. Well, he did run it down a lot of them's throat, but not you. And I admire you for that, for standing up for the working people of Louisiana.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And let's talk a little bit about, since you've been in office, let's talk about a little bit about that. What all you've seen happen and everything else.
Well, coming in 2008, of course, we saw Governor push a very hefty, lofty ethics reform, which he touted as being the gold standard of ethics. But as we got deeper and deeper into what we actually passed, we found out that everybody has ethics reform except the governor. That we're all held to higher standards except for him. And I don't think that that's the way to really run government. Along with that, in our regular session that year, we ended up having a nice surplus of money, and looking at what our budget looked like. Leaving that blank, that's a nice surplus, and seems like those powers that be, along with the governor, decided that money needed to go back to people, and we did some things and changed the study plan and gave away about $2 billion, and since then we've been working on a deficit budget ever since. And then just like, this year the governor said we have a $162 million surplus. It's not going to last. It's going somewhere. Whether it goes to put money more into the MFP because you got more kids, but there's always going to be a place for it because we're not planning and we're not putting any additional dollars in our coffers, or not raising any money, no new money. And following that, the governor started his voucher plan, and then, of course, as you well know, He started with the ed reform, which we fought and fought hard on, and were able to take, along with the unions, were able to go to court and prove that the funding mechanism was unconstitutional. They've looked at the teacher evaluation bill. They've looked at the omnibus bill that he put in regarding school boards, and the courts have ruled against the governor on a number of things involving those issues as well. The governor is so hell-bent on not raising taxes, he didn't even want to renew a 4-cent sales tax on cigarettes. And we were able to put that on a constitutional amendment to be able to get it approved by the voters. So this has been kind of really a roller coaster. And I wouldn't say a roller coaster. This has been going a straight shot where the governor has been getting a lot of things that he wants, but not necessarily, in my opinion, that he's been very objective in looking at the whole group of citizens in Louisiana. And of course, last year he adamantly refused, last session, adamantly refused to do anything about the Affordable Health Care Act and being able to give people in Louisiana, 400,000 families, working poor people, the ability to have Medicaid expansion. So we're in a quandary.
Let me interrupt you right there on that, because we talk about that every week. Can you give his reasoning for doing that?
Well, what he says is his reason is that it would put more Louisiana people on Medicaid than anywhere else. And he's absolutely probably right, because we have an impoverished state.
Thank you.
And we have also a very low percentage when it comes to putting people on Medicaid. It's maybe like 12 to 25% of poverty.
But Pat, the money that would have been brought into the state, look at how many jobs that would have created.
It would have created jobs. It would have also allowed for the government to pay for the first 3 years fully of this program. But his thing was still that those individuals that you put on Medicaid, once you get them on, you're not going to be able to get them off. And that would have been on the state, as he says, to ensure that they remained there. But even after the 3 years, the federal government was going to pay 90% up to, I think it was almost 10 years before you were able to look at what the state was going to have to pay. And when we did the calculations that our staff did, that it was only going to be about $1.2 billion over a 10-year period. Over a 10-year period, not necessarily all at one time.
And did I hear you correct when you were first when you first started about when the governor took office, we had a surplus, or we were doing pretty good? We
had a $2 billion surplus when we got in office.
And what a lot of the listeners, and I want them to understand that, we had a surplus of money before this governor took office. You cannot continue to give big companies tax breaks. I believe in trying to lure people, and when I say lure people, lure big business to come do business in our state. But you can't give and give and then you dig yourself into a financial hole, and then it starts affecting the taxpayers who are given these tax breaks.
Well, and that's what's going to happen. That's why, he was trying to push so hard for his tax reform package this past session as well, which, died on arrival. And thank God it did, because that would have been very, very much impacted by the working people would have been impacted. Businesses would have come out pretty good, because he was going to eliminate some business taxes, but he was going to raise sales tax. Which would have impacted everybody across the state who pays sales tax, but especially those poor people that are paying sales tax.
Right.
To revamp the earned income credit and all of that, but a good thing that did not fly and go anywhere.
And I mean when you start hurting the smaller people, and when I say that the people on the lower income part, they're the ones that spend their money. Let's be realistic about this.
Right. That's right.
They're the ones that get out there and really spur the economy. And I say this all the time, and I say it all the time, but it's under the Clinton administration, I believe with my heart and soul, he inherited not as bad as President Obama inherited, because we got short memories. And, and if you look back on the Clinton administration, what he inherited, and he turned this country around, and we had a surplus going into, the Bush era. But with that being said, the Obama administration, look at what they inherited, under the Bush administration. I mean, and it was a giveaway, but they turned it around. The Democrats turned it around, and you had a surplus coming in. But I think one of the things that the Clinton administration did was he upped the minimum wage. That was one of the first things he did when he got in office. He pushed up in the minimum wage. And when you have lower income families that get a bump in their money, they're already spending every dime they have just to survive. So if they get just a little bump in their money, they can bring their kids to the movie. They can get cheese on their hamburger. You know what I'm saying? They can go dine out, and they're the ones that spur the economy. Let's be realistic about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
And I mean, the Jindal administration, he thinks that when you give these tax breaks and stuff to big corporations that come in here, that they're going to spur the economy. I mean, it's already proven under the Reagan administration that the trickle down didn't work. But boy, they still try to push that, don't they?
Oh yes, right. Yeah.
Do you see anything coming up in the next session? Well, first off, let me back up, because under this last session, and a lot of people don't know this, under the last session, our governor, he was gone the whole session. And I'm going to tell you, y'all had some bipartisan legislation that went through, because y'all rolled up your sleeves. You had a big chore ahead of you, trying to balance a budget and find money here and to keep things open and running. And from what I read and understand, that y'all did have cooperation across the aisles, and y'all rolled your sleeves up, and y'all came up with a pretty good plan to keep the state operating without him even being in town. And then when he came back, he tried to, sabotage all that. But is there, talk a little bit about, what y'all did during the last session.
What we found was that, of course, there's a group in the legislature that's called the Fiscal Hawks, and those individuals had been, of course, instrumental in a year ago as well in looking at the budget and trying to make some changes to it. Of course, they also wanted to see the budget cut to the extent it could be cut, which would have meant that we would have really hurt some of our people as well that we represent. So there wasn't a whole lot of encouragement going forth with the issues that they put on the table. But this year, when the budget came through, and because of the fact that the governor's plan for the budget was nil and void at the beginning of the session, when he told everybody to go find a way to do away with the income tax, then, of course, it left the budget in the hands of the legislature, because he was actually gone. He played no role, really, in trying to craft anything on the budget. If he did, he was doing it from the Eiffel Tower somewhere, wherever he was. And it started with the Ways and Means Committee and the chairman, Joe Robideau, who indicated that he was not going to hear any bills regarding changes to the budget until they came up with some means of being able to do something. And the Black Caucus had a plan on how to change the budget, but that plan didn't even get to the table as well until I don't think it even came to the committee for vetting. But anyway, so the legislators then decided, I guess, that we would have to do something. And the Fiscal Hawks had already made some contact with groups, meaning they met with the Black Caucus in January during our retreat. They started meeting with other groups. They had a summit that they held in New Orleans to talk about the budget and what they'd like to see change. And so it started a conversation and dialogue between unfettered groups. We had Republicans, we had the Fiscal Hawks, who generally are Republicans, but there were spatterings of Dems in there. But as well as the Black Caucus. Some members of the Black Caucus, it was our chair and vice chair and others that began to meet with fiscal hawks and began to forge a relationship on maybe what the budget could look like. It seems that, some folks took issue with that Republicans should never have conversation with the Black Caucus, especially the Black Caucus. So some folks were intimidated by that, I guess, but it was just amazing that the chairs, the Democratic chair, the Black Caucus chair, and the chair of the Republican Party, and then the Fiscal Hawk group, they began to have meetings constantly to discuss and forge a budget on what we thought was going to be the best thing for the public, and came up with an idea and put it forward. And of course, as you well know, it passed. It wasn't the budget the governor wanted, because a lot of the things that he wanted were taken out. But he managed to, when the budget went to the Senate side, he managed to get the senators to put everything back in that he wanted in the budget. And so the budget came back a little bit different, and we didn't really accept the budget until we made sure that there were some things in it that were going to make sure that we had put in, that they stayed in. And then of course, when you're out of session, there isn't a darn thing you can do. And as you saw, we had put in money for deferred maintenance for all of our colleges, and the governor just decided to take that out. And as you see now, he's put in things like giving his protege or his mentor $1.2 billion. I'm not sure it's billion or
million. I read that the other day.
To build a museum in Franklinton, but everybody else has their memoirs at the State Archives building. So why is this so important that this be in Franklinton? The governor already has a docent that takes people around to visit his house, and I understand there's a charge for that. So why are we doing that? I just don't understand that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's enough, big donors that could do that without using the state taxpayer dollars.
And generally, that's what happens. That's exactly right. That's what happens a lot with the presidential memoirs. When they begin to look at where they're going to put them, they get donors or sponsors to be able to fund whatever it is they're going to do.
Well, Pat, educate us a little bit with how it works up there at the Capitol with the House and the Senate. It just doesn't go through one or the other. You both have to reach a compromise. Is that correct?
Well, everything that we do, if the House passes something, it also has to pass the muster of the Senate. And of course, just as a 101 educational thing for how a bill actually gets through, you go to committee first. You try to get your bill out of committee. And the committee's just compromised of a handful of people from the House or on the committee? Right. It's but believe you me, most of our committees are stacked with Republicans. So anything controversial that you bring to a committee, that if the governor doesn't like it, then it's, if you don't convince the people on the committee that it's good, then, and if the governor's against it, then you're not going to get it out of the committee. That's what we found, that they stacked most of the committees. I think labor is one of the few committees that has a majority of Democrats on it. Maybe labor and transportation, I'm not sure, but labor for sure. But unfortunately, that's what happened. And he increased the membership of a number of committees as well, just to put a number of Republicans on various committees, especially education. He did not want us being able to have a means of being able to change his ed reform bill. And so the education committee is stacked with Republicans who are generally going to go along with the governor. But nonetheless, that's the you get through the committee process, and then you go to the floor. And of course, on the floor, it takes a simple majority of 53 votes to pass the bill, unless it is something that requires a simple majority of 70 from the House. And what we found is that the Democrats Democrats along the Black Caucus have been able to stop a 70 vote if we felt it wasn't something that would help the people that we serve. And we've been able to stick together on many of those items as they've come through. MFP is another one that we worked on, and as you know, they're trying to change the MFP as well, again. And then the same thing with the Senate. Once the bill gets over to the Senate, go to a committee. Their committees are also kind of stacked, but they've got more Republicans over there as well. And they have fewer people, so it's automatically easy to put more Republicans on committees. And they have to serve on more committees than we do. You go to a committee, and if it gets out, then it goes to the floor of the Senate, where they require a simple majority, or they require, I think it's 20 votes for a simple majority. So, and then of course the bill goes to the governor. But if it's changed on the Senate side, then it has to go back to the House for approval. If it goes to the governor, then the governor can sign it right away, or he has 45 days to sign it before it becomes law. And he can also veto it. And he has line item veto of the budget.
Okay, and I just got a text from one of your, I think most probably one of your biggest and loyal supporters, and that's Louis Wren, the president of the AFL-CIO. He just texted me. He's listening to you. So hey, good morning, Louis.
Yeah, and let Louis know that I'm looking forward to Labor Committee, because I have to have a meeting with him on a bill I'm going to ready to bring.
Well,
he's going to go to Labor Committee. So.
He's listening to you right now.
That's right. Yeah.
So
we'll on that one.
His question was, can Bobby pay for the Foster shrine out of his campaign fund?
Oh, I'm sure he could. Oh, yes. I'm sure he could. You can give a good hefty donation to get it started, that's for sure. Yeah.
That's right. And so, we're sitting here talking about the governor, and I mean, and the people that don't see it, they've got to be blind. I mean, he's got a national agenda. He wants to be president of the United States. I don't think that's ever going to happen, or I hope it never happens, because of what he's done to Louisiana. But have you seen, since you've been in office? I've seen, or I've read a lot about it. You had a lot of people when he first got in office. They were loyal, and they really thought he was the one. But what I've seen here recently is they've got a lot more people bucketing on issues than are supporting him, like when he first got in office.
That is true, and a lot of it hinged upon his ed reform, which, as folks began to realize that was pushed so fast that they did not have a chance to see the unintended consequences that would occur. And they found that there were a number of unintended consequences, and so. Well,
Pat, the consequences was brought out before the reform was put in place, and that was by the Black Caucus and also by the Democratic Party.
But people didn't believe us.
Yeah,
they just didn't believe us. They believed that this was going to be the best thing for the kids in Louisiana, and. They went ahead, they meaning mostly Republicans, went ahead and forged ahead with the ed reform, and then found out during the interim session that after the courts ruled that there were many misconceptions with that, and as well as when folks went back to their districts who voted for that, their school systems really were very disappointed in some of those folks.
We'll talk about how he's closed some of the hospitals down. Yeah, talk about how the hospital privatizing the hospitals and closing them down. I mean, you see it, I see it, because my union hall's right across the street from from the charity hospital. Okay, and look at what it's done to the people having to the people that need it. They're having to get to different places instead of the location it was in.
Right. And one of the things as well, is I served on the last governing commission that they had, and it really, the recommendations for that didn't go anywhere. And I heard individuals who support LSU strongly indicate this in conversation, say LSU has got to get out of the healthcare business. And so with that conversation going on, it was then pushed wholeheartedly during the session that the dismantling of the charity system was going to go forward. And that, too, has happened so fast. With the way that it's happened, so many people are probably going to be left out of the access to health care. Now, some of them, like the Earl Care Loan, Our Lady of the Lake was the first to occur. There was like a 2-year period to be able to work out and talk about some of the kinks that were going to happen in that particular partnership. So the others came so fast that we're finding now that the money to fund all the other partnerships that are in place really isn't there. There's going to be a deficit. There's going to be a reduction in dish amount coming down the pipeline from the federal government, which is going to mean that you're not going to have a lot of dish money to go around. And you've promised these individuals that you're going to pay them so much money for the care of the indigent through the dish funds that you're not going to have that money to be able to get that, make the payments that you said you're going to give them. So that's the reason that a lot of people have felt that this is not, it was not the way to go with the health care reform. And the governor also has said that in lieu of him doing Medicaid expansion, his answer is these partnerships. Well, these partnerships are going to leave a gap, just like, he said, well, we don't want to have all these people on Medicaid. Well, you're going to have a lot of people not having health care because of the partnerships that are involved. Some deal with transportation. Some deal with the issues that, the partnerships are not going to deal with certain populations. There's a whole gamut of things out there that's going to have to be worked through on these public-private partnerships for the hospitals. Believe you me, it is truly not over.
And wasn't it amazing how he wouldn't take no money from the Obama administration, after the hurricanes and all that, and then the money came in anyhow, and
right.
And he took these big old checks and flew the helicopters and went to different churches across the northern part. Yeah, and got his picture taken, given these checks that he refused to take.
Right.
He's something.
He's hell-bent on feeling that he wants to run his state without infusion of federal dollars. He's turned down broadband dollars. He's turned down rail.
Oh yeah, the rail. What was that? That was $1 billion that he turned down.
And he's turned down just recently applying for pre-K dollars that would have not necessarily expanded pre-K, but enhanced the pre-K programs that you have. He turned those down. He's also turned down other educational dollars as well. But, you can't keep feeling that you don't want the federal government in your business or giving you dollars and think that you're going to be able to run a state and not raise any taxes. Because the people in this state are poor, and there's the majority. You have a lot of poor people in this state. And many of them are not their brother's keeper. So therefore, you end up by not taking federal dollars. You end up not really having a state, and you're actually a state that's at least compassionate to people, but you're creating a caste system.
Well, and you also have to realize that it's not a handout. Right. Our people here in Louisiana pay federal taxes also. So it's not a handout. It is, you're getting your money back.
Yes.
We follow the lead of other states. I mean, you've had, just with the health care issue, you've had staunch Republicans in other states that said we're not taking the money, and they've since then have backed down and said, you know what, this is the best thing for our state. He's one of the ones that says no, it's not. because he's got a national ambition, and and that's really a crying shame that he is who he is. But they I know you got some more things on the coming up, and I'm glad you did a little shout out for Lewis. And you were talking about the pre-K. I'm married to a second grade school teacher, and she and it's been proven before pre-K, when they start at the pre-K, it advances these kids so much that the teachers, when they get to the first and second grade, have the kids have a much better understanding, on where they're at. And she, in the second and third grade is when you learn your phonics, and
right.
You don't have to go back to square one, because they've learned some, they're advancing. So why he would not do that to advance to pre-K, I don't understand that at all.
Neither do I. But there are some reasons when. Of course, the State Department maybe not filling out the application on time. They used the excuse that they just didn't want to apply. I don't know, but I do think that there's a lot going on in education right now that all of us need to keep our eyes and ears open, because I can tell you that the new pre-K program, Act 3, that's been initiated, and they've got pilots going on around the state. We also need to look at the labor market as well, because we need to, as I told them, need to monitor how many of our pre-K or daycare programs will close because they take state subsistence but can't afford to be able to do what the Act calls for, and that is for pre-K readiness in hiring. And I'm talking about mom and pops that are out there with child care and quality daycare programs. So they're changing the way these individuals have to deliver on services in order for them to continue to get state subsidies. But there is a big concern by me and a few others on whether or not members are going to go out of business because they're not being able to getting the technical support that they need, or being able to hire an early childhood teacher to be able to bring their kids to use the rubric of the readiness program that they've got in place. So it's my intention to go and visit some of these pilot programs to see what's happening in those programs, and just go from there and seeing how we can tweak it and make sure that folks are not really going to lose their business. When you lose the mom and pops, you lose good taxpaying dollars for people, and you lose places where poor people generally send their kids and get the state subsidies for daycare or child care. And
it's such a relief talking to somebody that really understands how real life is all about. We've got people out there that are working for minimum wage or not much more than minimum wage. They're struggling. They've got to pay their rent or their house note, and in order to have a job, you have to have some place to put your kids, and
right.
and not all jobs allow you to come to work after school starts. So you've got to get your kids off to school, and if you don't have some kind and before, if they're not in pre-K, you've got to have a place to put them, while you are at work trying to pay your bills. Not to mention you have to have insurance on your car. You got to have gas money. You got to have bring in enough money. We've got people working 2 or 3 jobs trying to raise their family or provide for their family. And again, it's a blessing to talk to somebody that really does understand.
Well, my mother worked 2 and 3 jobs. When we were growing up, we never lacked for anything, but she worked 2 or 3 jobs in order to keep us going. And my mother was an ex-teacher and was one that didn't get through the segregated NTE test. So, that's been a long time. She's 99 years old now.
Uh-huh.
But I saw, that struggle, during my childhood days, and know what it takes in order for you to hold your family together. And of course, pay that during that time wasn't really a lot. And in some instances, it hasn't changed a whole lot for us for certain kinds of jobs as well. So yes, people do. They work 2 and 3 jobs, and of course, getting a living wage is also something else that people don't always have either. So, we've got to work on some of these things in our state. People they shy in raising the minimum wage for people to make a decent pay. They talked about the impact. They don't want to give equal pay to women for doing the same job as a man. You know, these are things that this state has just cringed and gone away from, and it just doesn't make any sense when you have a impoverished state with so many people that are struggling, trying to make sure that their families are taken quick care of, to have the same quality of life as other people, then we ought to be doing a better job of ensuring that they get there.
And that's you're touching on a bunch of subjects that I like to hear. The equal pay. How could that have not passed unanimous? What is the argument on the other side of the aisle with that?
The argument on the other side of the aisle is that it's going to cause lawsuits. That's generally the argument.
How?
And that makes sense.
If you're doing the same job that a man is doing, why shouldn't you get the same amount of money?
I agree. I mean, as I always tell them at committee when we discussed this, that it wasn't until I went to work at ExxonMobil in the union that I knew I was getting the same pay as everybody else.
And you just took the words out of my mouth, because in my local, when you take a work order to go somewhere, you're making, it doesn't matter, if you're a man or a woman, black or white, you're making the same amount of money,
Right.
It's 2013.
It is that.
And I just can't understand how you would even, how that's not unanimous.
And not to cut you off, but understand there are women who vote against it as well.
Really?
Oh, yes. There are women on the Labor Committee that will vote against equal pay.
Well, that's a surprise.
And they're just not, and they're getting their orders from somebody else to do that. Believe you me, if they were left to be, have a heart-to-heart, come-to-Jesus meeting with individuals who are working hard, they would really, because they've never really gone out and talked to other people. They've gone to a business and asked them a question, but they've never talked to females who work in industries that don't have the same pay. So, and they don't see the end result of that either. So the point is that when you don't even consider gathering your own information on why that's important, especially when we were in committee and we got the results of Baton Rouge being the lowest paid. Baton Rouge, the city of Baton Rouge, is the lowest paid area for women in the country. And women make, I think it was, 40% less than a man in Baton Rouge. Don't quote me on that, but there was a large disparity of the pay for women and men in the area of Baton Rouge.
And we are the capital of Louisiana.
That's exactly right.
That's something. You had said earlier when you first called in about the general administration with the transparency when he first took office. And you read about this, on a pretty regular basis, with all the boards that he appoints, different boards. Isn't it amazing how when he doesn't get his way, all he does is take that ink pen and take that person off that board?
That's exactly right. That just happened with the Coastal Board.
Yeah. That
wants to sue on oil and gas. It's his way of just exuding his power, I guess. It's almost like your parents used to tell you, I brought you to this world, I can take you out. Well, yeah. He says, I'll put you on that board, I can take you off.
Yeah. and
what he does. But I feel that when you are on a board, in my opinion, the diversity of the board is what should matter. And diversity comes with having different people with varying degrees of concern and knowledge base, not necessarily the knowledge base, but different ideas. So when you remove those people and put only people with like ideas, then they're going to march in step. And it's like puppets.
Yeah, it's not a democracy no more. It's I guess it's kind of like being married. The husband and wife are not going to see eye to eye every time.
Right.
But you know what? You hash things out, and you do what's best for the family.
Right.
And that's kind of like these boards. They need to hash things out and do what's best for the state of Louisiana. And
right.
you mentioned the coastal board. The thing is, let's look at the big picture. The people out there fishing and the people that are living off the land and stuff like that, they're not the ones that wrecked our coast. It
right.
was big oil. Let's throw it out there. That's who wrecked our coast. And we're getting all the salt intrusion and everything else that did away with our barriers, and I know some hurricanes did too. But the hurricanes wouldn't have done all this because we had Mother Nature had coastal protection. And when you start digging canals and you start drilling and you start running these, boats and stuff through different paths that wasn't meant to be, it destroyed our coast. And, and there's no difference if somebody comes and with their pickup truck and goes through the middle of your yard, you shouldn't have to fix that. They should. If you get in a car wreck and somebody's at fault, who pays for it? You or them, but that is his way of that's his way of being a dictator as far as, you don't see it my way, I'm taking you off that board. So, what else would you like to talk about? We got a few more minutes.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the schools on their report card this issue, especially EVR, that has made some strides, and all the other schools across the state that have moved up. But, we've got a long way to go in our issues of reform, and a long way to go in tweaking what we have in place, because while a lot of folks are gung-ho on this voucher program and the charter program, I can assure you there are some nuances and things that need to be looked at as to what we're actually doing. If you look at the Recovery School District and what they're doing in Baton Rouge especially, they're an F system. And as I told the superintendent at the table last time I was there regarding some charter organizations, that whenever they brought charter providers into the city of Baton Rouge, trying to get them to charter schools in East Baton Rouge Parish, there's such a mistrust factor. There's no trust between the residents of East Baton Rouge Parish and the Recovery School District. And so, therefore, you end up with the majority of people staying with the parish you're trying to break up, and they're overcrowded, and you get a school that can hold 800 to 1,000 students with maybe 100 to 200 students in it. And that is not efficiency. And they are not going to ever get to that point in East Baton Rouge Parish, in my opinion. So they're an F school, and they're still trying to take over schools. And I believe that the state ought to be working themselves out of taking over schools and getting the traditional schools, giving them the opportunity to be able to improve, so that there's not this us and them kind of situation that's going on right now. We know that the voucher program is going to be another issue and coming up in state budget next year, because where's it going to be funded from? That's why they're trying to change the MFP. Just bottom line, everybody needs to know that the funding mechanism for the MFP was deemed unconstitutional for the vouchers. So you cannot take vouchers and run them through MFP. You got to find another way to do it. So they're now trying to change the MFP and how the formula actually works. And they found out that it's so complicated that it will never be changed before next session. They don't have enough time to do that because of the intricacies of that complex formula. So it's going to be another fight, I know, coming to the floor on ed reform next session. So just people need to get prepared for it.
What about the TOPS program?
So also, I don't know if you've seen the paper today yet, but the coroner in Baton Rouge is looking at trying to increase the minimum sentencing for heroin. I mean, we fought a long fight, before I even got into the legislature. It took them 10 years to be able to get heroin lifers of the ability to have eligibility for parole because the terms of sentence was changed to 5 years, 5 to 50. But nonetheless, it's not a life sentence anymore. And he feels that because of the sentencing, that's the increase in heroin, that people don't fear it. Well, you can use the same argument with murder. There are people that don't fear murder. They're not fearing the death penalty because of the fact that they're committing a crime and they're going to get these sentences, and it didn't deter them from doing it. What they ought to be working on is where's the heroin coming from? Where is it coming from, and how is it getting to the street? And instead of that, you want to put another mandatory sentence in the Department of Public Safety, which puts a burden on their budget by having more people in jail for longer terms. This doesn't make any sense.
How about let's educate the people and give them a way out of it?
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So, until we look at our whole public safety DOC budget and how we can truly make reforms and make sure that we're doing the right thing by sentencing, then we shouldn't be looking at mandatory sentencing again for anything like that. Now, I saw some of my colleagues said, yes, we should. But, that's a knee-jerk answer to a question because I understand people are dying, but people are dying by murder, too.
Yep. While we're ending, last week we really preached to the listeners about getting out and voting. I want your opinion and why it's so important that we do get out and vote. We've had some of the lowest voter turnouts.
Right.
I'm really embarrassed about it. But people don't think they can make a difference. They can make a difference by going that Saturday morning and voting.
Well, some of those cycles are going to have to change. Like this one was only the fact that we had for us it was the two tax issues in Baton Rouge Parish, and some people voted on the justice of the peace. But it seems to me that there's got to be some means of being able to deal with the cycles of how when we go to vote. When I went to vote, I think only 8 people had voted. So, and the other thing about where I vote, I was informed that in the Riverbend Brightside area, only 9 people are qualified to vote for the justice of the peace. They have to open the precinct for 9 people to come and vote. Now that is a shame. That means that needs to be redistricted some kind of way where those 9 people are put someplace else.
Right, because how many poll watchers did you have to have at the?
You're going to have 2 people out there, 2 to 3 people out there. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, and that's that's an added expense to
right.
to the election. But I mean,
the envelope on voting is extremely important. But I think people become inundated with small. It's not small time to the people who have it on the ballot, but with very few issues are on the ballot, most people don't turn out. That's what we're finding, and so there's got to be some means of being able to coordinate that a little bit better. Of how our cycles of voting, and look, the governor pushed to have this congressional district 5, pushed it so fast, whereas an interim could have been put in there until there were many things that could have been done rather than doing it the way it was done. But to me, there's some things that are done for political reasons and some things that are done just because. So.
Well, Pat, we've only got a couple of minutes. I got one more question for you, and I'm going to let you, you've got about 2 minutes to respond to this one. You think the governor would have taken the federal money if it was coming from a white Republican?
I think so. I do believe that. I do believe that. That's a bottom line answer. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, all the hullabaloo that we're hearing out here against the federal government is because there's a man of color in the seat.
Yeah, in the presidency, and I'll tell you, I had a gentleman made a little snide remark to me yesterday, and it was about the Reagan administration and then the Obama administration. And when I looked him in the eyes and told him that I was a 100% Barack Obama supporter, I wish you'd have seen the look on his face.
Yeah, they don't expect that from folks who look like you.
No, they don't. And I told him that too. I said, look, they have, I don't know if it's the way I look or what, but I do get people that tell me that all the time, but I'm not one of you. So
right.
Miss Pat, I really do appreciate you calling in, and it's been a joy talking to you. It's refreshing, and I hope you call back.
I will do. All right. Thank you
Okay.
much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for having me on this morning.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
And this is Baton Rouge Labor Radio. We're on WTQT 106.1 FM. My name's Neil Miller. I'm the business manager for Local Union 198, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters in Baton Rouge. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. We'll be back next Saturday from 7 to 9, and I hope y'all listen in, and that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you.